Co-op Mode, round 32. This is the official video game podcast of Secret Friends Unite, and also the podcast featuring the worst facial hair in the world. That is by me, Todd Oxtra. I look like Yosemite Sam, and Wyatt Earp had a baby.
I like it. I think you're going, full on quarantine stash. It's working for you. Why we might as well. We're stuck inside. We might as well have some fun. If you didn't notice already, I gave myself kind of a Hawkeye from Endgame-esque haircut. My hair, I was having the white boy man fro. Going on. The sides of my head were just sticking out, and I got really just sick of it the other day, and I picked up my clippers to kind of trim my beard, even though it's starting to grow back now. I just went up the side of my head and was like, well, we're into it now. And so anyway, it's not the best. It's not terrible, as bad as I thought it might be, but it's definitely not the best. But you know what? Quarantine life.
My son let me trim the sides and the back of his hair, but that was all he would let me do. And then the wife was like looking at it and everything, and like around the ear. The problem is when you make a mistake with that type of thing, you can't go back. You either have to embrace it, or you're like, it's going to look bad for a couple weeks.
That's it. There's no edit undo. I went with, the clippers with the guard and everything. So I wasn't going too far down on the guard, as leaving it a little bit bigger. So I didn't want to buzz it straight down like Charlie did. Holy, he just went for it, didn't he?
A little bit, yeah. Long story for Charlie. He is my co-host on Secret Friends. He had dyed his hair because he's a cosplayer and he wants to look differently, and he's gone prematurely gray. Actually, when we were in college, I think he started going gray. So he colored it, then he didn't like it, so then he buzzed it off, and then it became like the haircut that shook the internet.
Right. Yeah.
As long as he.
I think he looks good as with the shaved head. Like he just pulled it off instantly. I was very surprised. He looks great with it. So if you're listening, Charlie, thumbs up from Canada land. I wasn't that brave, so I just I left a decent amount of the guard up. But it was still kind of scary because at one point I did want to take the guard off completely and just have a straight razor.
Ooh.
Just to get rid of some little flyaways and stuff, kind of fade it in kind of thing. And man, that was I'm glad I have very steady hands, because it was I was just doing it myself. It was a fun surprise for the wife. And anyway, here we are, Hawkeye and Colonel Sanders bringing you the video.
I say. Mark, if you did want to get really, you really want to get inventive, you could have Loren just do your island in Animal Crossing on your head, like the back of your head all around.
The back of my that could work. That we'll see. That'll be the next step. Give me a couple more weeks of quarantine, and then the crazy shit will start coming out. It'll be just carve a river or something into the back of my head, and let's get inventive with some dyes, really have some fun with it, I think.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into what we're playing. Obviously, I know what you've been playing, Mark.
Yes, sir. So Animal Crossing, I don't even know if I want to admit this, but you know what? This is a safe space. 80 hours so far in Animal Crossing.
Let's do the math. Let's see. Since the 23rd is when it came out?
Sure. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I don't know. The days are all
an average
together.
Of 4 hours a day, Mark.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it came out the 19th, didn't it? Was it March 19th?
The 20th. Yeah, the 20th. I think it was.
20th, yeah.
Okay, so a little bit less, maybe 3.5 hours.
3 weeks. That's still, in my opinion, an absurd amount of time, but it is what it is. I'm hooked. I'm enjoying it. It's relaxing me. I am still working from home, so it's nice to have a game that, if there's not much going on at work, I can duck in for a second, fish for 5 minutes, sell those fish, earn some bells, do whatever's going on, and then duck back out and go back to work, right? So it's kind of nice that way. Like I haven't been sitting and playing it for hours and hours and hours, like sometimes, but for the most part, it's like picking it up here for a half hour, picking it up here for 10 minutes. You know, there have been strings where we'll watch a movie or something. I'll play for 2 hours and not really realize where the time's gone. But yeah, for the most part, it's just kind of picking at it here and there, which is very nice during this whole pandemic. Yeah. So have you've been not playing much of Animal Crossing?
Correct. We own one Switch. We have one copy of the game. We have it digitally. So even if I had two Switches, I guess I could sign into another Switch, make the game, all those things you have to do all those fun things to share games on Switch. I could do those apparently, but I do not like the game enough to spend more money on it. So I'm in the world of my son's. He's got a great island and everything. I've got my little tent. I think I've got a campfire. I've got some tires and some assorted garbage that he leaves behind. That's what I've got right now. So I'm just living in his world.
Oh, man. I have an idea. So I should come over to your island the next time. Like if I spent 600,000 bells on turnips today. So if I can find an island that's selling them for a decent price, and I follow, if anyone's not following the Yumi Capri Discord, if you haven't listened to any of Bobby and Sean's shows,
oh my God,
shame on you, because that's a great Discord. But there is a channel in there specifically for people saying, hey, my bells are selling for 500. My bells are at 480. They're whatever. And so if I can get a whole lot, I should come over to your island and just give you like 500,000 bells.
Ooh.
And then you'll have a bigger house than your son, and he'll be like, what's going on? And
I love that.
Animal Crossing life.
He'll be so pissed off. It'll be great.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
I love this. I mean, anything I can do to make my son get mad, because he was mad already. I think I said this. He was mad that Celeste talked to me before he talked to him, and so I think he gets a little like FOMO. It's like if something isn't going on in his world, that I would love it. But yeah, we haven't
the 5-room mansion or some shit before you get to.
Like overnight. It's like, what the hell did you do?
Yeah.
You've only played this game for 3 hours, Dad.
Yeah. Oh man. Like legitimately, I'm gonna see how much money I make this week off of this, and
this could be even better, Mark. We should go in the Discord and say, like, it would be like a Go Fund Todd.
Yes.
And Bobby would love this because he's pissed off at me anyway. So yeah,
this is I like your son. We when he was like, on the show and whatever, we got along. He's a Nintendo brother in arms, and right now I'm plotting against him. I don't know what this
is perfect
to me, but
he deserves it. He deserves it.
I'm sure he does. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. The game's great. If you're not playing it, if you need something calming and relaxing to get away from quarantine life, then Animal Crossing's a good option. Todd, what have you been playing if you're kicked off of your island?
I've been like cleaning up my library because last episode I talked about finishing a couple more games. Well, I decided, what games are out there that I started but didn't finish. So Gears 5, finally finished it. And that game is deceptively long. It's like, I thought there were only 3 acts. There's 4 acts. I'm like, whoa. Just like Gears 4, this game suffers from some pacing. It just feels like not much is happening. The combat's great. Those type of things are great, but I felt like I'm doing more of the same. It doesn't feel like Gears really has changed much in the mechanics and you get the onslaught, and then when it's done, you get that cool twang, and then you go on and do your next mission, which is cool. But like I said, it feels like more of the same. So I finally beat it. There is one instance in the game where I was surprised. It did surprise me because it did something I don't know if it's done in the past, where it made you make a decision that will definitely carry on in the next game. And I'll be curious to see how they do this in the next game and deal with that decision, because it could have gone, A or B. So whatever they do, they have to accommodate for, and it'll be interesting to see how they do it in the marketing materials and things like that, because it'll be noticeable. So, and I
wonder if they'll do something where they can read your save file, or do you think they're just going to say, here's the canon ending of this game, whether you pick this or not, deal with it. It's fun to have choices, but at the end of the day, we're choosing that this is the canon route to go, and here we go. Which what do you think?
The Mass Effect route of what you did. It kind of and if you never played those games, it kind of said it made some decisions for you, or you'd make some choices. So yeah, I'd be curious because obviously the next Gears game will be out in 2 years, maybe. So
eventually, yeah.
And the way this definitely game has a cliffhanger, so it's not like they can start the next series of Gears games fresh with this next game. So I don't know if that's spoilers for anybody, but it does. This definitely did not end the saga, and I don't know if their intention was to do 3 more games the next saga or whatever. So don't really know, but it'll be interesting to see what Gears does. But gameplay was excellent. I had a lot of fun, but it just, like I said, I kind of forgot about the game for a while, came back and finally finished it. So if you need a game to play that's great and it's got co-op, perfect co-op game, couch co-op or online as well.
All right.
And you went back to the Assassin's Creed collection you've gathered, Mark.
I did, yes. So Assassin's Creed Rogue. So I got the Black Flag and Rogue collection on Switch a while ago. And anytime I want to go back to an older Assassin's Creed game, I tend to go back to Black Flag. It's my favorite in the series. I love just the pirate, adventures and all that kind of stuff. But I think the only game in the series that I have not played up until very, very recently is Assassin's Creed Rogue. So this one is, it seems like you start off as an assassin who eventually becomes a Templar and starts hunting assassins. That's what I'm kind of gathering from the story so far and kind of what I've read. But it starts off very close to home. Like I was within 15 minutes away from where I live.
Really? I didn't think
in the game. Yes.
They've only done one game in North America so far. That was 3, right?
3 was, So 3 was the frontier kind of North America-ish stuff. There was a mission in, I want to say 3, that took you up to Oak Island. So if anyone watches the Curse of Oak Island on history and knows about the treasure up there, that is probably a 4 to 5 hour drive away from where I live. But that was a side mission that you kind of like fast traveled up to there and could walk around on a part of the island for a second. And it was very, very quick. Just that was it. This one starts off, and I don't know exactly where the first mission takes place. But after that's kind of the tutorial stuff. And then, you take off up to the North Atlantic and you're around Nova Scotia. And so I headed to Halifax and stopped at a little thing, and it was in Glace Bay, which is literally where I lived for the first 2 years of my life before we moved, again, about 10 to 15 minutes away in Sydney. So really, really cool to see that kind of connection and just land it. Now, the map is atrocious.
Wow.
Atrocious. Like Cape Breton Island, like the island I actually live on, seems to be just part of Nova Scotia. And I'm not sure, like they seem to have combined PEI, which is Prince Edward Island, with another island or something. And that's way bigger than it should be. And then Newfoundland and Labrador is like kind of squished. So everything's kind of squished in like the Gulf of St. Lawrence kind of North Atlantic kind of bit. But it's still neat to see names of places that I've been to. And sail around and see, this is Glace Bay. Oh, here's Miramichi, which is in New Brunswick, but super close for some reason. Anyway, it is a trip. It's completely inaccurate. So if anyone's playing that game and saying, "Oh, this is where Mark lived," wow, it's crazy. No,
it must have been based on maps of the day. Like there was probably a sea serpent in the game too, because they just put the sea serpents. Where was the edge of the Earth? Was it just a little bit down the road?
Really close. Yeah, really, really close. So it is, like I said, it's super inaccurate. And I'm guessing other places are like in past games, if you're running through New York or I'm sure if you like Rome and wherever you've been in past games, I'm sure people who live there are looking and saying like, this is so bad. But for most of us, you're playing and you're seeing these places, and it's just like, oh wow, they've created some buildings and they've done this and they've recreated this and that. So it is going to be cool to see how much of some of the bigger locations. I'm really curious to go into Halifax because that was such a big kind of military kind of thing. I'm curious to see if they've recreated the Citadel or anything like that in there. Kind of sad that Louisburg is not included in this. That was a big French fortress close to here. But so far does not seem to be on the map. But yeah, super interesting so far. And it's at least making me want to stick with this game and see other close by locations that I can actually travel to. So yeah, kind of cool.
Very cool. Yeah, it's kind of neat because that was the game, I believe, that was like the transition game between PS3 to PS4 and Xbox. And obviously, it's great that it came back out. That was cool. A lot of people really liked it better than what was it, Syndicate? Was it the game that came out on next gen?
Unity, I believe, was the first one, and apparently this kind of ties into Unity, or so someone said. I'm not that far into it so far, but apparently this does tie into Unity, which I played, I finished, but it was definitely not one that sticks out for me, and not one that I'd want to go back to. But cool if it ties in. But yeah, you're right. This was when they released that game on new platforms. This one came out on the old platforms, which most of us had already kind of moved on from at that point, and so it was never something that was on my radar, but I'm very, very happy that I've gone back to it.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, a game that's a little bit over the top and it's new that I've been playing is Doom Eternal. A little disappointed because I think I mentioned last episode that I got an Xbox One X on the cheap, so I've been really excited about that because obviously it's the beefiest system we've got right now. But GameFly sent me the PS4 version, so I'm playing on PS4 Pro because a little disappointed that I wasn't going to get to play it on X, but that's okay. And Doom Eternal is, I think Bad Bit talked about it already. So not much more to speak to it, except I feel like I'm not very good at this game. I felt like, man, every time I go into a battle, I feel like I'm just struggling. So I don't know if I'm not in it yet or what it is, but I may have to go to like super baby difficult because man, oh man, it is amped up. And it's funny because typically a lot of games, they aim down the sights as we pull the right trigger. That's your alternate fire button. You hold that down and then you shoot, and that becomes your alternate fire. So that becomes almost like
Right. So yeah, that's like when I went back to Halo. And you're used to aiming down the sights, but that throws your grenades or does something, and it's whenever that button in a modern shooter is different, it throws me right off.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm not as precise in my aiming because of that. I don't know what I become, even in games where you're not supposed to aim down the sight, you're supposed to aim, just shoot from the hip. I've gotten so used to, like, even in close, I aim down the sight still. And so it's throwing me off. I feel like I'm not as precise in my shots. And because melee doesn't kill anyone unless you do the what's it called, the money shot or whatever they call it. I don't know what they call it. Where you make the guy glow and then you hit him.
The money shot from now.
Yeah, the money shot. Yeah, they make the guy glow and then you hit it. You basically melee them and then the stuff comes out of them like a pinata. But so I'm like, crap. I really have. And the ammo is so sparse in this game. So you can't just go hog wild and just kill things from afar. You've got to go in, use your chainsaw to get things. Basically, that's how you get your ammo, I believe, and armor is where you get that. And then you have to find your gas can to fill up your chainsaw. So very cool. I haven't gotten really cool new items yet, but the enemies are more difficult, I feel. And the biggest change has been the I guess you'd call it the platforming, which has made it more interesting. But man, Mark, I got to get good.
Yeah, that's always a difficult struggle, and you want to be good at the games. You want to beat it on at least a normal difficulty and not go to super baby mode. But at the same time, how I've been living and dealing with this problem the last little while is I don't have enough time to get good at all of the games. I work and there's a baby on the way and I have a whole bunch of stuff that I need to take care of. So that was one of the struggles I had with Jedi Fallen Order. And that was something where I got stuck in a boss battle, and it was, I'm trying to beat the whole game on at least regular difficulty, and I got through 99 or 98% of that game, but you get stuck on a boss battle and you're like, I want to see where the story goes. I'm getting frustrated. I'm either going to snap a controller or throw it through my big, beautiful 4K TV. Maybe I should lower the difficulty and just move on with my life. And once you come to that realization that is okay, because otherwise, unless you admit it here that you lowered the difficulty, who's going to know and who's going to care? So
absolutely.
You do you,
Yeah. And I've like tried to experiment with that where maybe it's just one specific like boss battle. I'm like, okay, I'll switch it to easy and then I'll go back to medium. But some games don't let you do that, which I find is a ridiculous thing. I don't know if it's because of trophies or whatever, but I think it should allow you to change your difficulty on the fly basis how you want to play.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
Yeah. So please don't call me Baby Todd, guys. This is a safe space, as Mark said. So.
And if you do not put him in the corner. Yes. The last game on my list is one that I honestly, I just picked this up yesterday, so I haven't had too much time with it. But it is super fun so far. The Sega Genesis Classics Collection.
Oh, yeah.
It is currently on sale on Switch, probably other platforms. Not sure, didn't check. But on Switch, this is fantastic. I got it for $15 Canadian, which I think they give that to you for free in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
the
version
pretty much, yeah.
That works out there. $3.75, something like that. Anyway, it's a great price for a great collection. There's like 30 games or something crazy in this. It starts you off in a virtual bedroom, which is awesome. And you have like your old school TV and your little like stack of games that you can kind of flick through. And there's so many different options of like pixel perfect mode and like anti-aliasing and putting those CRT kind of filters on it. So there's all of that stuff that you would expect from a classic collection. And there's so many games. Like I said, there's some that are misses, of course, but there are some obvious mega hits on here. And even if you wanted to play, I think at $15, buying 3 of those games separately would pay for it. So if I bought Sonic 1 and 2 and Gunstar Heroes or something like that, or Comic Zone or any 3 games, then the rest of them are just cherries on top. So far I am super impressed with the presentation, and the emulation seems really good. I played a couple of the Sonic games so far. Like I said, I just picked it up yesterday. So far, very impressed. The emulation seems really, really spot on, and I can't wait to play around with a few of the filters to see how things look. But so far, even just pixel perfect mode is awesome. So far, so much so that I'm thinking about possibly getting a Sega Genesis controller, because it feels weird playing Sonic the Hedgehog with a Super Nintendo controller. But it's really cool. Really cool.
I think 8-Bit Do makes a Genesis type.
Yes, that's where I was looking. Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. So, plus the D-pad, that's essential part of the game. And if you're playing on your Joy-Con, it's that weird buttons instead of. So I don't know if that makes it. But
yeah. I was playing with the 8-Bit Do Super Nintendo controller, and I did play with the Pro controller a little bit, which is fine. If that's all you have, or the Joy-Con. If this is a great handheld collection, right?
Yeah.
As well, so it works. It works fine that way. But I think it would be even cooler with an actual Genesis controller. So we'll see what I want to do there. But even with the Super Nintendo controllers, it's really cool.
Nice. And you can always get one of those. I don't know if you got one or not, but back in the day it was Nyko or one of those. They made a Joy-Con with a D-pad, which was kind of nice. It was super cheap, but I have one of those, and it's got like a Zelda inspired, but it's like $12. It's really cool. And actually the D-pad's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get one of those, but I might have to look into that.
Yeah. I own the collection as well, but I haven't even dipped into it. So I'm like, I need to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Very cool. Well, a game that you could play, Mark, is Journey to the Savage Planet that just got dropped on Game Pass. It's on Xbox. I don't know if it's on PC. Sometimes they don't always go to the same places. But this game, it feels like a Bethesda type of game, like an open world, like the Outer Worlds. That's what it's called.
Outer Worlds.
Yes. So it's
Frick.
like that type of aesthetic. Kind of feels like, your first person perspective, kind of got a good sense of humor. But basically, you have been sent forth to explore and mine things from the fourth best mining company, as they call themselves. It's very comedic. My son thought the intro was hilarious. It's a clever game, and it uses basically the whole premise is you crash land on this planet, you have to fix your ship, and how you fix your ship is basically go forth and mine things, kill lots of wildlife, and get the resources to do so. While I found it clever and fun, I did find it fairly tedious in the actual resource collection, and that's the main thrust of the game. There's some combat where you kill like things in the environment, but it just, to me, I kind of got bored of it very quickly, and I saw what they were doing, but there's a lot of traverse where I'm like, I've got to go all the way back to my ship now. So I wish there was almost some type of waypoints or something you could utilize to transfer yourself. But it's clever and it's cute. And if you like something that's kind of like brainless, just it's a pretty game. It's like I said, it's clever. It's fun. You've got upgrade paths to upgrade your weapon, your jumping abilities, and things like that. But when I saw the list of things I needed to do, what I needed to collect, I'm like, it just felt like a chore. I mean, I know that's that's the appeal of Animal Crossing, which is funny. It's all about the collection and getting more and stuff. So I'm finding that's just not for me as much. I mean, but it's cool. I thought it was a neat idea. It just didn't really grab me. So if you're interested, check it out. It's free to play.
Yeah, this game, and I do think it is Xbox only right now on Game Pass. I'm not seeing it being able to play. I'm looking at the app. I'm not seeing it available on PC. But this game, am I mistaken? Is this coming to Switch?
It might be, just like the Outer Worlds is coming to Switch. I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, I guess it could, because it's not exactly like a very detailed game. It's got a cool aesthetic, but it's not like it's super realistic.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know if this was announced. I'm trying to look that up really quickly. But it did look pretty interesting. Journey to the Savage Planet. Yeah, I think it's coming to Switch platforms. Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, Microsoft, Windows. Okay. So there we go. So it is eventually coming to Switch, but I did just press install on the Xbox version. So if I really love it, it does look like it has some exploration bits, kind of similar to Metroid Prime. So could scratch that itch a little bit maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're scanning a lot too. That's the thing. It's like you're almost like scanning to categorize, find out what things are. I don't know if you get points for scanning, but you scan all the wildlife, all the things. So it's almost like that Metroid Prime mode. So that's there as well. So I think for some people, like this is in their wheelhouse, and there's like, oh yeah, I'm all in. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. And you have been playing. So I'm not the only one that went back in the old school collections this week, right?
Yeah, I did something stupid again. I got the itch because Ryan Turford from the Xbox Drive was talking about playing Buffy the Vampire Slayer on his Xbox. He did not say how he actually played it. And I'm like, I can play it. Is it backwards compatible on Xbox One? No, it's not. Funny thing about Xbox One backwards compatibility is only 500 Xbox 360 games are compatible and only 39 original Xbox games. So it's funny. You think of like, everything's back. No, it's not. Out of a gameplay library of 1,000 games on the original Xbox, only 31 went to Xbox One. So what I did, the smartest thing in the world was, because I wanted to play an old game, was spend $80 off a pawn shop to find an Xbox 360. Apparently Xbox 360s, there's like a resurgence and people are trying to buy these things. They aren't that cheap.
Really?
As much as you expect. Even Wii's, same thing. People want to play Wii Sports, and now they're going and the price is rising as well. So I wanted to play some games. I thought Xbox 360 is probably the best way to go because enough of the games are still backwards compatible Xbox One, at least the ones that are well worth playing, and then all of the Xbox 360 games. So there's games I wanted to play, but aren't necessarily backwards compatible on Xbox One. So, long story short, I've been buying some games off eBay because what do? You're bored. You buy things that you hem and haw. So I found the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was an exclusive on the original Xbox, which is so weird. that you would think, well, that's an exclusive, but yeah, never came to any other system or PC. So this is a game that got me to buy an Xbox back in the day, and I loved it. It's fun. It's a game by the Collective, and it's not all the voice cast are from the actual show, but it's surprisingly well done, and it is of the time. So the graphics aren't great anymore, but the gameplay is still pretty solid. So I'm enjoying that a lot. The other game I picked up was the last Indiana Jones game for consoles that I could find. That's Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. This was on Xbox, PlayStation 2, and I can't remember, maybe PC as well. And it's by the Collective as well. I'm like, I don't know where the Collective went. I don't know if they exist as a developer anymore. But this is like a Tomb Raider and with Indiana Jones, and it's fun actually. It's an original story. But the biggest problem I have has significant performance issues. The audio stutters. Like when you're hearing the Indiana Jones theme song, and it's like, da, 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 da. I mean, it ruins the effect.
Jeez.
Gameplay pauses for, 15 seconds at a time.
Oh, mercy.
And some of the jumping mechanics and the 3D platforming are not great, and there's a lot of it in here. But it's still fun. So it's an interesting look back how far we've gone. Some games look better than others. I don't know if the Xbox 360 did any magic effects to make it look better, but it's there. I've got more games coming. So as we go down this journey, I'll give you my update of if it's aged well or not. But awesome. More to come. I have some old 360 games too that I've been itching to play as well that I missed the first time around.
All right, well, if you ever felt like talking about Xbox games, we could always do something where maybe you'd go for a drive in your car, hit up McDonald's, get some coffee, do something really original and unique that I don't think's been done before, and you can tell me all about your Xbox game experiences, and we'll turn that into a spin-off show or something like that.
I think that really way, cool. Or we could adapt it, make it the Xbox Walk.
Yeah,
as you're walking your dog around the neighborhood, Mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Little update on the Collective, just because I was curious while you were listing this kind of stuff. So the Collective was actually merged with Backbone Entertainment in 2005 to create Foundation 9 Entertainment. Under Foundation 9, the Collective was merged with Shiny Entertainment and into Double Helix Games in October of 2007. So Double Helix was then defunct. They were integrated into Amazon Game Studios in 2014.
Wow.
So if they've stuck to that same team, or if there's still some of the same people around, those people could now be possibly working for some sort of Amazon Game Studio. I have no idea, but the Amazon Game Studio is, still going and still doing something apparently.
I think they have a MMO coming out, and it got delayed. But that's the only game I'm aware that they were working on. And that's funny because that's where they try to get a bunch of talent. And one of my favorite podcasters of all time actually went there to help them form the studio, and he left. So.
Interesting. But yeah, the Collective did a ton of licensed stuff. They started with Men in Black, the game, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Fallen, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Indiana Jones, Wrath Unleashed, and Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, all three LucasArts games. Mark echoes Getting Up Contents Under Pressure.
No. Was that the tagging game?
That was.
You graffiti? Jeez. Wow.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. They did the Da Vinci Code, and I think that was their last actual released game. They were working on something for Dirty Harry from Warner Brothers Interactive, and that was canceled.
Wow.
So, super interesting. Super interesting. And then, Double Helix kept on going with some of the same stuff. So they did like Silent Hill Homecoming, but then also got into a few licensed stuff like G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra, Green Lantern, Rise of the Manhunters, Battleship.
No.
Some super.
Battleship. Was it the movie based on the movie based on the game? Based on the game?
I don't know. Yes, it was actually. Battleship is based on the film of the same name. Yeah, that is fantastic.
Wow.
So
that's the deep
that was
hole.
released,
That's the deep hole.
Yeah, PS3, Wii, and 360. Frick, man, that is lovely. Anyway, little deep dive into some history there, but yeah, it's always crazy to see where video game developers go and like how they evolve, and go through different license game. That seems like it could be either lucrative or a massive pitfall for development studios to get into. Like it seems like sometimes it's gold and other times it just sinks the ship. Really, sorry for the battleship
that
reference,
might be a good topic in a future one. Licensed games,
I'm the proud owner of one of the worst licensed games ever. Star Wars Yoda Stories for the Game Boy.
Was that based on like Yoda desktop adventures?
I think so. It was borderline unplayable. I saw Yoda on it. It was I don't even know if it was secondhand or a clearance bin in Blockbuster. Jesus, I'm aging myself here, but that game's a hot pile of garbage. Let's talk about that some other day.
Perfect. I love it. Well, now that we've basically had the money shot of games that we've been playing, we're going to talk about the dearth of news that's out there. But we've had some, I guess, bright spots along the way. That's, I guess, the good thing about doing this every 2 weeks, Mark, that basically enough bubbles up that you can actually fill the gaps.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the biggest news that we probably had is the PlayStation's had a rocky road of announcing, especially in 2020, what they're going to do with their PlayStation 5 console. The last time they talked, they were widely panned for probably the worst presentation in the world that was based on a developer conference.
I heard about one guy that just woke up from that.
Oh, yeah. It was like the hibernation.
That he just, he woke up. He was like, whoa, PlayStation, Corona, what? He had no idea what was going on. It was pretty brutal.
So he was one of the 4 guys in that presentation. You saw the back of his head.
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. Well, they announced something more exciting, which is actually the controller. They're calling it the PlayStation DualSense, which is kind of a break from the DualShock, which I think is a smart decision. It's not the DS, it's not the DualShock 5, and it looks different than what we've seen with PlayStation. I mean, it's still got the same stick layout and everything, but they changed up the tone. It's a dual tone controller. It still has the touchpad. It's changed the light bar to be more along the sides than it's front facing, rather than being front facing. It's USB-C charged. It will have haptic controller feedback. And let's see, it's supposed to have a longer battery life, which that's what everybody wanted because the DualShock 4 is absolutely horrible. I always have mine charging until I play them. And let's see, is there anything else I missed?
Stuff that's been already announced, the haptic triggers, all that kind of stuff, I think.
It has a microphone, too, which is interesting. So basically...
Right. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how well your voice will sound, like if you're online gaming, because ultimately, unless you want what your buddy is saying coming through the TV, it's still best to use a headset. You think this will be used for like some type of assistant, like a Siri or sorry, not a Siri, but... Alexa, maybe.
It definitely could. I mean, that's always something that's I guess worrisome when you're playing, especially if you're trying to use that as a microphone and there's sound coming out of the TV or something. Of people in gaming always will take advantage of that and say that hello Siri, turn off PlayStation 5, and your whole PlayStation will shut down or something. I think they did have a problem with that through Xbox One with Kinect, right? So they fixed that. So this could be cool. I don't know if it's something that a lot of people will use. And like you said, is the voice. If you're using this for voice chat, you have the microphone built in. Are your friends coming out of the TV or the speaker on the PlayStation 5 controller? Either way, I can't imagine that sounding great.
No. I think it's, it might be a one-off feature or something like, and it's kind of funny because I think of like controllers and features that they tout but then never get used. I mean, it's like the Nintendo IR camera on the Joy-Con. I don't know how often that's used. Labo is the main thing for that. Then you've got the Xbox had what would they call it? The impulse triggers. And I know that wasn't wildly used, but it seemed like a cool feature too.
Yeah, that's what everything about this controller, and I don't want to sound like the Nintendo or Xbox guy here, but PlayStation controllers have never impressed me. I've always hated the inline sticks, the design of everything. And a lot of the new stuff on this one seems like those Nintendo style features. And I'll be the first to admit that Nintendo throws a ton of useless shit into their tech all the time. Xbox right now is my favorite controller, bar none. They know how to make a controller, and Sony seems to be, in my opinion, maybe leaning a little bit into the wrong direction and taking cues from Nintendo of admittedly some really cool tech. All of the stuff sounds awesome. If it is actually used, it could be a game changer. We've talked about this before with feeling the pullback of a bow, or getting not being able to pull a trigger if you're out of ammo and having to reload that, or something where you can feel a reload, like an active reload from Gears. I know it's the wrong franchise, blah, blah, whatever. Anyway, I'm suspecting that a lot of third parties are going to ignore this, right? This is going to be taken advantage by Sony first party, which is going to be great for the people that want those games, but for Call of Duty and Battlefield and Battlefront and Tom Clancy games, whatever anyone plays, I don't know if will people put the extra development time into this, because it seems like Xbox is pretty much sticking with a standard controller. You can use the Elite controllers with the Super Xbox. I don't know, man. It seems like, I'm hoping. I really hope this stuff takes off, because it sounds really cool. But the cynic in me is saying, like most Nintendo products, this is going to be really, really cool for 5 seconds and then completely ignored.
And it adds cost, right? If it's a feature that's different, it's not going to make it cheaper. The Joy-Cons are ridiculously expensive. And most of those features are like, hey, I don't really care about feeling balls or ice cubes in
you don't want to feel balls in your hand.
Yes, brass ball bearings. I like to shake those around in my hand. Yeah. How does it feel? Cough. Turn your head and cough. Yes.
I was trying not to go there. You just leaned right into
it. Why not? So they didn't change the stick layout. And one thing I thought of, Mark, when you talk about the haptic feedback, in games where you've got like those quick time moments where you got to push the button really fast. What if they made like the haptic feature, it takes more effort to pull, instead of like the rapidly pulling, it's like, oh, I have to really push hard to do something. That's a cool effect. You could do that in a quick time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I don't want to dump all on this, because it sounds like some really, really cool stuff. And if everyone across the board was, if Xbox came out and said, yeah, we're going to do this trigger thing too, that sounds badass, then awesome, because then third parties essentially have to start taking advantage of that, right? It's once it becomes that table stakes, everyone's doing it, then there's no reason not to. But as soon as it becomes that extra development cost and takes some time and people don't care, then it's one of those stupid Nintendo features that they're sadly so known for. And sadly, we all have 100 pieces of extra plastic for adapters and fun little fishing rods and steering wheels and cardboard headset guns and whatever. It's I don't know. It seems like it might be going in that direction.
Yeah, and it also adds complexity when you go to the next generation. If things go forward and everything, that's why we've got a light bar still, probably. And that's why we've got the touchpad on this, because it has to support things that were on PlayStation 4. So once again, you're adding complexity. It's like the old Microsoft backwards compatibility for like software. It's like, oh, I still want my Microsoft Windows XP stuff to still work on my Windows 10. It just creates more challenges to support that. So yeah, I'm not excited. I mean, some of these features could really be cool, but until I get it in my hand, hand, I won't know. So you can tell me about it, but until I can actually do it, is it a cool thing? Is it worth having? But one of the things that's interesting is the design in regards to its cosmetic appearance. It's a dual tone. We haven't seen that with really anybody do that. And I think a lot of people are making a lot of great mock-ups. Some are funny.
Oh, man.
Some are hilarious. Like there's a Mario one I've seen made out there. Some people are like, it looks like a lady's tank top. So I've seen that too.
Some of the Photoshop jobs were hilarious, and I couldn't believe, because I think one of the first ones I actually saw, because the day this all came out, I wasn't really paying attention to social media or anything, and one of the first things I saw was a mock-up, and I was like, oh, this is weird. And then I saw the real one. I was like, wait, is that a mock-up or is that real? So I actually had to go to Sony, like their actual account, and see, oh, like this is legit. Like, but people are already making mock-ups that quick. It's but it is a cool looking controller.
Yeah, and I love custom controllers. I love different themes. I love all of those. And it was funny because with all of Nintendo's innovation and everything, I feel like they've been very blank and absent on their controller design. At most on the Joy-Cons, they've added some color. The Pro controllers, they've kind of ceased to even try to innovate with those the way they look. They've done very little. And yet they've been so successful, but maybe that's their second era where sales dip. Now we bring out, more of the crazy innovation.
Yeah, I've been really curious about why Nintendo hasn't done more with the Pro controller. It just seems like such a wasted space, but maybe it's, I don't know if it's they put out the special editions and they sell what they want them to sell. Maybe the regular Pro controller sells well enough that they don't feel they need to. Like you said, they haven't noticed a sales dip, so why bother? But for me, having my Xbox controllers be so unique and getting the colors and the designs that I like of those controllers, even the special edition controllers that Nintendo has put out, I haven't been super impressed with. I've seen better like shell mods on Amazon, right? Like you can just or the third party designs.
PowerA looks great. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the Mario Zelda designs from PowerA are fantastic. Even some of the GameCube controllers that they put out for Smash Brothers, the wired and wireless ones, are amazing designs. And Nintendo's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, you guys can do that.
I guess they make a part of it if they're certified. If they basically pay for that license, they get money anyway. So like, hey, you guys do all the effort. We can just sell the generics. Yeah. So sorry. Maybe. But I just love some of these designs. Like the Zelda one looks really cool. That we put some things in here. Basically, God of War, Zelda. I'm not sure what the gray and blue one is. I can't tell by that design.
Spider-Man. That looks like Horizon.
Okay.
The gray just looks like one of those giant Brachiosaurus type flathead things. The Spider-Man one has me very excited. Just the stark white buttons, the blue, the red, the spiderweb design is. Man, if I had to buy one of these right now, that would be it 100%. It is so badass.
Yeah, and they even have one that looks like the original PlayStation, which is kind of cool. They've got a Transformers one, and the Assassin's Creed one at the bottom is really cool looking with the gradient colors. Very cool.
Love those gold triggers too. I one of the biggest regrets, I almost did, because at the point where the Sea of Thieves controller came out for the Xbox One, I was pretty convinced that I wanted an Xbox One at that point, and I was just shopping around for the right price at the right time, whatever. And I kept seeing that controller in stores, and I was like, man, I should just buy that. I love the gold triggers. I love the design, all this, whatever. And then I finally got the Xbox One, and I went back for that controller, and they've been sold out ever since. Yep. And they're $1 million on eBay or anywhere else. And I always kick myself, even with my Gears 5 controller and the what's it called, Phantom Black controller, whatever. I see that Sea of Thieves one pop up every once in a while on a photo someone shares or something, and it's like, I hate you so bad, and I hate myself a little bit.
Yeah, Xbox is really nailed with controller design. They even have their design labs, which is really cool. So, and I would like to see Sony do more. I did not like the DualShock 4. It almost looked like a Fisher-Price, the two-tone. Didn't like that at all. So the one I've got that I like is like a clear one, and it's the least offensive one I could find. Yeah, so I like this, though. It looks like they can do more innovation with it, which is great. And along with the controller, people have mocked up what they think the PlayStation 5 will look like. And I like this as well because it's fun. none of these are real, but I like the one. It's kind of like the Cube, but it's the dual tone. I mean, we've never seen really a dual tone console at launch, and it'd be kind of cool to see. Sony's they've done gray and black. Microsoft has done black and whites. Nintendo has done many different variations in color. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool to see them go down, because we know Xbox is going to be the obelisk that's black. So they could definitely play off and do some fun things.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm surprised, honestly, at this point that they haven't said, here's what the box is going to look like.
Unless, and they also didn't show, Mark, the inside of the controller. Are there little triggers on the bottom? We don't know. All they've shown is the side, but there could be something else going on there. Maybe they could say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just imagining that, but maybe there's more to show. But they're doing the slow roll, so I imagine it's just, hey, we're just going to keep going, and we'll give you a little bit and dribble it out. So I guess we'll see. Yeah. A good news piece, Mark, is really cool, is the fact that there is a local gaming high-end PC builder that is making ventilators for the New York market. Yeah, that's really great. Good news story coming out of all the COVID-19 panic in New York. I don't think it's news to anyone that they've been hit harder than literally anywhere else in the world. So pretty dire straits, and thoughts go out to anyone in New York that's been affected. But it's good to see game makers and PC makers and people in all different types of company. I mean, we're seeing this on a local level here too, with places making ventilator parts, respirator parts. Even some alcohol distilleries are producing hand sanitizer now instead of just regular alcohol. So this story was kind of cool. Yeah, the company's called Main Gear, and their ventilator is called the Main Gear LIV ventilator. And the cool part is they're showing some innovation where typically a ventilator can cost up to $50,000. They're doing it for $7,500. That's amazing.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope this works as well, but this is it's going to be quicker to get it in there. They don't have to steal from another country. Sharing these resources is important if we can make them locally. GM in the United States has been asked to make ventilators, just like Ford in the U.S. has been asked to make masks. And so, and I know you work for a Ford dealership. So it's great to see these companies step up.
Yeah, it really is. I was super impressed with how Ford and other companies stepped up instantly and just had, obviously I get all the marketing material and hear about things that are going out before they go out. And from Ford Canada, at least, and we saw some stuff from Ford in the US. They were very quick to, kind of make sure that their dealerships were okay, but also just to say, like, we're doing these big measures, we're changing to make these or give these ventilators or these masks or whatever. It was amazing to see these big companies kind of shift the way they think and the way they work and that kind of stuff. And it's great to see this kind of stuff. I mean, it sucks that the world's in this kind of situation, but it's making even giant conglomerates or smaller PC builders, all come together and kind of help people out. It's really cool.
Yeah, we need more good news. And then I guess some good news is there is a lot of companies that are giving, they're basically doing free game trials, giving away games. Ubisoft is doing a lot of that as well. Apparently there's I did not know there was a Just Dance service that's out there. It's basically a subscription service, but apparently they're doing it free for a month. So I guess if you buy the game, it's like a subscription model where you keep getting free music. So it's free right now. So if you want to dance, it's out there. But yeah, keep watching for free games.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but along with that, Stadia has had a rocky start. Some would say they're surprised it still exists, but it does. And the good news is, if you want to try it out, Stadia Pro, which is their service that is 4K streaming and also gives you a library of games. There's a free Stadia experience, which I do not believe has been released yet, but that is just basically games that you buy and you can play them on any Chrome browser. So that's where we're at currently. But this is kind of cool because it's 15 games are available in the service, and you can play this service on anything with a Chrome browser at this point, which is cool. And you just need a compatible controller, which I believe is DualShock 4, the Xbox One controller, maybe even the Pro controller, so Bluetooth enabled. And then you can play the whole Destiny package, which for a guy that never got the most recent Destiny expansion, and I can now cross-play or my character import, whatever, over. So I can now play that most recent Destiny port for free for 2 months.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. It's a good time to check this out, especially, you can play on Pixel or other Android phones, but like you said, any kind of Chrome browser, that's fantastic.
Yeah, very cool. You just need Wi-Fi, and I think it's a 20 megabyte connection, but results may vary when you actually do it. Just like Game Cloud, the xCloud trials, it depends on how, like we had trials and travails on which played better. The same thing here, so we'll see how this goes. But, once again, it's free. Give it a try. If it may convince people that the service is up to par, we shall see.
Yeah, hope it works for Stadia.
Yeah, so Mark, we know E3 has been canceled for 2020. Even the ESA actually said we're not going to be able to do a digital event either this year. So somebody stepped up, and this is very cool.
Yeah, this is amazing. IGN stepped up in a big way, announced the Summer of Gaming event, which is a global digital event set to begin in June and bring basically the E3 experience online. Show upcoming games, impressions, news, next generation of console hardware, everything. They're collaborating with 2K, Square Enix, Sega, Bandai Namco, Amazon Stadia, Twitter, Devolver Digital, THQ Nordic, and much more. When you combine this with the timing, you have to assume that Xbox's digital event, Nintendo's digital event will all be happening around the same place. This is E3. IGN just said, you're stepping down, we're stepping up, and here they are. So this is awesome in my opinion. This is great. I mean, IGN's had comprehensive E3 coverage for as long as I can remember, and now they're just changing that to, you know what, we're running the show. We're not just reporting on what's going on. We are what's going on, right? So it's very exciting.
I wonder, I mean, I hope this isn't just a glorified Zoom meeting presentation. I mean, they have not been, I mean, I've been listening to their podcast still. They're doing most of the things from home. I'm wondering if they'll have a way, just like a lot of news stations are doing, where they have minimal manning at the actual, the studios, but be able to still do it. So maybe have a producer, someone manning the cameras, the production, and then have maybe one or two people live on set where they're socially distanced, and be able to do that and still use some more of their more sophisticated presentation capabilities.
Yeah, I that is one thing that crossed my mind, because the audio quality and stuff, while IGN's been figuring out how to work from home, and it shocked a lot of people of how quick everything went down. So the audio quality, I've heard super indie podcasts sound better than IGN's from home podcasts. But most of us have these mics at home, and if you work at IGN, why would you have a mic at home when you have a studio at work? So it makes sense that way. But I do hope you're right, where whether they send gear to people who need it, or they figure out some way to do something, or maybe it's, fingers crossed, but relaxed enough a little bit in June that maybe some people can start to go back to work, or do things in a very cautious way. But I'm hoping by June, maybe some of the restrictions might be a little bit lifted and things might start to look a little bit more normal. So maybe a skeleton crew can go back to the IGN office. Maybe they can kind of start to monitor things a little bit more, and we'll have more of a handle on this. Am I saying that just for IGN? No, I also have a baby on the way, and I'd like my family to be able to meet him.
Yes.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm hoping by June, maybe some people will be allowed out of their houses. But anyway, it will be interesting to see, but they are going to be doing this on more than 20 platforms: desktop, mobile, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Mixer, Twitch, whatever, Snapchat, TikTok. It's going to be everywhere. You're going to be able to get bits and pieces. One thing I'm hoping is you won't have to go everywhere. I'm hoping I can just put the IGN app on my Apple TV and just watch everything. I don't want to watch part of it here and then go to Snapchat for another bit and then open up TikTok and watch. I just
you're gaming in 15 seconds. Yeah, you're gaming.
That's it, right? Like if there's some kind of fun behind the scenes thing on TikTok, I'll check that out. But I don't want to be forced to go to 20 different freaking platforms just to get one comprehensive bit of news. I hope it's easy to follow.
Yeah, I do. And I forgot, since this time, we actually did get one video game presentation since, and that was the Xbox, Inside Xbox, which I totally forgot about. And we saw that. Phil Spencer was basically broadcasting from his home, and I had to laugh because there was an interview with one of the hardware developers. He was there, and I'm like, I don't think they were using Azure cloud servers for his video because it was out of sync. It was bad, but I mean, God bless them for trying.
Yeah. Everyone's adjusting, whether you're a giant company or, a couple of guys in a basement. It's everyone's adjusting to reality as it is. So we'll see how this shakes down, but we will definitely be talking about this in June and following it along rather closely.
Yeah, this gets me excited again because I was so worried that, we obviously are worried about other things, going on, but this stuff is a distraction that keeps us, gives us a little bit of entertainment where there's been really a dearth of it, and that's what we need.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing goes away and another thing rises from the ashes. So IGN hopefully will be the video game phoenix.
I hope so. Just really some other quick bits. Baby Yoda may potentially be in the Lego Star Wars game, Mark. This is a thing that they saw. They saw some of these Lego sets, and they had a little bulb on it that said basically there'll be a code so you can incorporate the Mandalorian ship in the game. Oh. So that is kind of cool. I mean, I've heard so little about this game. I mean, it's a Lego game, but it's supposed to be, the whole trilogy, the whole, it's everything, right?
Yeah. It's apparently, the whole saga. So the prequels, the originals, and the sequels, the modern day stuff. But we may have mentioned this before, that we hoped that like other games, like the Lego DC and Lego Marvel and whatever, we kind of hoped that there would be either some DLC or some stuff in it. I want to see Clone Wars. I want to see Mandalorian. I want to see when it comes out eventually the old Ben or Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever they call that show that they're going to be doing. I want to see everything in this. If it's going to be the Star Wars Skywalker saga, I want everything in between. Rogue One, whatever you can throw at it. So this makes a lot of sense, and I also kind of want that Lego kit. That looks badass.
Yeah, I wonder if WB was going to have their big conference. This might have been a big part of it. Did the IGN announcement, did that say Warner Brothers would be there?
I don't think they were in the list that I read, but the list did say, many other developers. So I'm sure they're just kind of in early talks or finding out what people's plans are. WB could be going off on their own. They weren't in that list. The list was 2K, Square, Sega, Bandai, Namco, Amazon, Google, Twitter, Devolver Digital, THQ Nordic, and more. So I'm assuming that if they don't have enough to stand on their own and do a digital conference like Nintendo, Microsoft, whoever is doing, maybe they'll jump in on this, or maybe they'll be part of one of the other ones. I could see this easily fitting in and WB saying, look, Nintendo, let's pitch this in your Nintendo Direct, or Microsoft, here, you guys have this, make a big deal out of it, pitch it in, glorious 4K 60 frames per second for a Lego Star Wars game, go nuts. So I could see this really going either way.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's been a while since we've had a really big Lego game. There've been so many of them, and then they kind of petered off. So this would be cool if they did some really cool innovation, did some online co-op, things like that they really have not pushed the envelope. So can't wait for that. We had some delays, Mark, or potentially will have some delays.
Yeah.
So the Smash players may be a little disappointed.
Yeah, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. Sakurai went to Twitter, I believe, and then talked to Famitsu Magazine. Basically spoke about the impact that this pandemic is going to have on the development of new fighters. So we have the new fighter pass, 6 new fighters. They just announced that the first one is going to be a character from ARMS, which is exciting. We'll find that out, and the character will be released. I think they said June or July. Which is coming up very quickly, but apparently they're not all finalized like the ARMS character is, maybe. Or at least, maybe the licenses are, but there's something there. So the quote is, "My plans to present new fighter proposals to publishers have been delayed indefinitely, as I haven't been able to meet up with those involved." And that's from Sakurai. Even if we are able to announce a new fighter, there is the possibility we are not able to work on development as scheduled. As of right now, all 6 characters are due to have been released by December 2021, and that could obviously change. There was something where he did talk about working from home and this game being so secretive, so they're trying to find ways of taking this super secret material out of the office and securely work on that without everything leaking out and all this kind of stuff. So they're faced, as I'm sure many developers are, with how do we work from home? How do we keep this a secret? How do we keep this under wraps? How do we keep the teams in sync while working remotely? You can't just walk to your friend's or coworker's desk and say, "Hey, this tree isn't working, or this gun isn't firing the way it should, or let's coordinate on this." Everyone's trying to figure it out, but game developers have that extra problem of such a secret industry suddenly being forced to work from home and deal with Zoom security issues, and it's crazy. It's so we will be seeing some game delays, and Smash Brothers is one to come right out and say, yeah, no, we expect this.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you just don't have the same capability of doing, especially in a very tech-heavy environment, to do it from home on your standard laptop or something like that. They need those special tools, dev kits, all that fun stuff. And then they also need to play those games together, and that's a big part of how these characters work. They're developed. Are they overpowered? Do they need to be tweaked? That takes people playing against each other and trial and error and things like that. And they just may not have the capability to. So, oh boy, my son will be disappointed.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, something that disappointed me was Last of Us 2 and Iron Man VR delayed indefinitely. Last of Us 2 was supposed to come out in May. Iron Man VR, I believe, was an April release. And Last of Us 2 was already delayed from its original, I believe, March or February release. So not without being that just kind of tells me at this point they're basically saying, if we are really truly going to launch this game, we want to launch it when people can still buy physical games, they can do these things, and they know that people are sensitive to financial pressures now, because video games are, while it's great for some of us, other people have lost their jobs, lost their income, and guess what? That's less income to spend on entertainment, and maybe in a lot of ways it's best to push some of these things off when people can, and they don't feel like, am I going to sacrifice? And it's a company that wants to make money. Sony still has to stay afloat. They can only do so much. So, I mean, it makes sense. It makes me disappointed. But hey, I can sacrifice a little bit.
Yeah. It's what's worrisome or strange to me is, and maybe you hit the nail on the head. So when I was hearing about these delays, I was thinking, man, these games aren't that close to finished that they could just be, kind of polished up or whatever. Like they seem so close to release that I immediately assumed that any game that would be delayed is something middle of development, where again, you need that ability to work in the office and coordinate and have all those meetings and do all that kind of, like, this to me seems like, oh, can't they just kind of put the final polishes on and just kind of ship it out and whatever. But maybe you're right. Maybe they are holding it back when to when the world can be a little bit more normal or something like that. And it's, That kind of makes more sense, I suppose. So yeah, these were shocking to me, but the way you break it down makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that Neil Druckmann, who's the executive producer behind the series, was very disappointed. He's like, I really wanted to get this out there, but he understands it was a decision that was out of his hands. So I don't know if this allows them to do anything else. I know they're under a significant amount of crunch as well. Yeah. Doing the crunch from not your home. Once again, don't know what it takes to make a video game. I'm just not that smart to understand the systems and things needed. So, and you're right to the point of like security, moving files, screen grabs getting out there. That would be horrible if something bad happened during that type of situation.
Absolutely. Takes one person accidentally leaving a hard drive somewhere for that whole game to be leaked on the internet.
Or a thumb drive at a medieval times, as they would say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. So that takes us out of the news, but we wanted, since we were talking about the the DualSense, you and I were talking about, hey, controllers, how they've changed, the evolution, and I'm old enough to unfortunately live through most of these, and then you came in at a certain time, you even dropped a certain control. I'm like, I'm surprised you actually used that. So I thought, hey, let's look and see how controllers have changed over time. So I found a link, and I think we start from the very beginning, and some of you kids are like, they go back as far as what, maybe the Wii or PS3. Things have changed a bit. And Mark, we go way, way back. So my first system that I ever owned was but I'll say the first game I played was an Atari 2600. Although I did play a Pong system once. And there's one here, which is kind of funny. What's the first console that you actually played?
The first one that I actually played was an NES. The oldest console that I played was an Intellivision that my dad had, but we didn't play that till a few years later. Found it in storage. At that point, I was, into video games, but we had played NES, Super Nintendo, probably even up to N64 before we actually found that Intellivision and decided, like, oh wow, what is this? I want to plug this in and see how it looks. So I have played with the Intellivision controller. And, of course, like old arcade games and that kind of stuff with the Donkey Kongs and Pac-Man and everything. So the Atari joystick would be pretty familiar. But is that what you started with, the Atari 2600? That was the joystick, single button?
Well, the first system I owned was the Atari 5200, which is kind of funny because it was a game system that was capable with an adapter to play 2600 games. But most of my friends had an Atari 2600, which, if anyone's not familiar with it, was a single stalk, like a joystick almost, and one single button. Right. They also had some weird paddle controllers where you would play like Kaboom and things where it was almost like Super Breakout, where you had to move the paddle side by side. So it was knob you moved side to side and had buttons on the side.
Okay.
So they did have some variation in those, and not everybody had those because it was more money to spend. Right. But yeah, to your point, my cousin, he had an Intellivision, and then my neighbor actually had a Pong system. So I don't know if you've ever seen a Pong system, what it looked like. Pong is basically a video game tennis. It was the original one that came out, and there's an image here, Mark, of it's kind of cool. It's like a little console device that has two little knobs. It's got an Atari button, which I don't understand what an Atari button does. And then it's got like another button. So basically one person would turn one knob to move the stick up and down, and another person would do the same thing on a standard, black and white 13-inch TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Atari button looks like it might be the on button. Just looking at this image.
Sure.
But yeah, man, it doesn't even look like those controllers disconnect from this unit. I might be mistaken here, but yeah, it looks like you'd have to sit very, very closely together. So imagine playing on a Switch, but the Joy-Cons are attached and you each have one Joy-Con is essentially how this kind of looks. Possibly even closer together, which is amazing.
Yeah, it was fine for what it was at the time, but definitely not perfect. But we both mentioned the Intellivision. That came out in 1979. I didn't realize it was that old. I thought it was right in the middle of like ColecoVision, Atari 2600, those type of things. But yeah, the Intellivision, 1979, and it's a weird looking controller. These were physically attached by weird stretchy cables that were like twirled like a
the coiled, almost like a old school, if you remember, wired telephones. Again, kind of dating ourselves, but we're talking about a controller from 1979. So at this point, who cares? Basically like a telephone wire looking kind of thing, all coiled up. Had a number pad essentially on it, but from what I remember about this is it did come with different inlays.
Yeah.
So you could drop almost like a card into this controller and it would change based on what game you were playing. So if you were playing, a game where you had to go up, down, left, and right, then you drop this card in and 2, 4, 6, and 8 or whatever would become up, down, left, and right. And, the middle buttons of 5 might become something. So it would kind of overlay onto whatever controller, like it would adapt to the game, which I thought was super cool because, essentially now we're seeing those. And that was the big thing with the iPhone. If you remember when that first came out, was Steve Jobs saying, we don't want a keyboard on the screen all the time because a keyboard can't change. It's always a keyboard. But what if you need that to be a controller? These guys back then wasn't a touch screen like we have now, but essentially they found a very unique and interesting way to change a number pad into a controller. So number pad didn't always have to be a number pad. So even 1979 or whatever, they were thinking about some really cool stuff.
It was weird. I mean, it's just the same thing. Those overlays were just an odd thing. And the fact that they had to add a number pad on, that was a thing for a long time. A number pad or with all these little buttons that really didn't have a lot of uses, which is, like we said, we talked about companies putting too much things into a device that doesn't get really that used that often. It was kind of like what could be, but does anybody really use it? So it was kind of like funny. But the Intellivision had like a pad. It was almost a circular ring, but you push that up and down and side to side. It didn't really, I don't think it rotated at all. But talk about a mess for an ergonomic way of control.
Yeah, it was not ergonomically. And I can't remember if that thing rotated. Again, I keep referencing Apple, but I can't remember if that was like the original click wheel that it actually mechanically moved, or if it was just there. I honestly can't remember. I'd have to go. I think we still have this console. I doubt it still works, but I think it's at my parents' place.
Okay.
Once this quarantine is lifted, the next time I'm able to go to my parents' place, I'll see if I can dig this up and actually touch the controller.
Ooh, that's going to be fun. Oh, I love it. One thing I was looking at this list. They had something called a Coleco Telstar Arcade. Did you see this thing?
It's
1977.
Insane.
That's
like the one with the gun inside it and the steering wheel. It's crazy.
It's like a three-sided, like a pyramid of a piece of plastic. And like Mark said, it had a steering wheel on one side, had an old-timey pistol on the other side, and then bits and knobs, I assume, to change whatever.
Okay, so what I'm reading here is the steering wheel for, of course, driving games. The dials in the front, so this front bit, are for like Pong, tennis, stations, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is those kind of like turning knobs, and then the gun for light gun games. So this was this was Wii Sports before Wii Sports, man. This was like everything, just all the accessories all in one. It's amazing to see even this far back gaming. So much has changed in gaming, but not much has changed in gaming. We're still using buttons, and we're still using weird accessories, and people still haven't nailed controller design, or when they do nail controller design, they're putting out weird accessory controllers and stuff. It's wild. Like, this is going back to 1970s, and we're still getting cardboard shooting guns and weird little knobs that serve one purpose and then get forgotten. I even
saw the Switch had, I don't know if you saw this or not, they have a fishing game coming out where you put the Joy-Cons in a fishing rod controller. So yeah, the days of using plastic pieces to do stuff, it's not gone away.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, so 1982, that's the first video game system I owned, was the Atari 5200, which I talked about. Once again, had a number pad where you put an overlay in. Once again, I think it was used by like 5 games. Didn't really use it much as a kid. Had buttons on the side, and it was the first one that incorporated a pause feature. Before that, games did not have pause. So it's very cool. Start, pause, and reset. But the worst thing about this controller incorporated the joystick stock, but it was not self-centering. So basically, this thing broke all the time. Just talk about Joy-Con drift, Mark. This was like the whole thing would just eventually break, and it was stuck. So I bought like 5 or 6 of these things. So yeah, it was not ideal.
No, not at all.
Did you ever play the ColecoVision?
I have not, no.
Okay. ColecoVision, I had a friend. Everybody had a friend that had a system. My one friend, Steve Jones, had the ColecoVision. I loved it because the ColecoVision at the time, for some reason, had the best ports of Donkey Kong and a lot of the Nintendo arcade systems. For some reason, I'm not sure why. Had a fantastic Donkey Kong port. And I really loved it. And they had driving wheels and things like that. And also, once again, this had a number pad. I don't think it had overlays, though. I don't remember. But it had buttons on the side again, had a big knob to control, basically almost like the Intellivision as well, but it was raised up a little bit. So you kind of used it almost like you're like using your stick shift in a car.
Okay. So, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So once again, we're kind of in this mode at this point in this era where they were kind of similar, using similar, I guess, design aesthetics in their controller and the way they modeled it. And it was basically kind of emulating what arcades did at the time, because that's what arcades did. I will say on the Atari 5200, they even brought out a trackpad, like Centipede, like the ball, trackball. So you would buy it. I mean, I think it was probably like $80. I'm like, that's a really expensive like accessory for like 2 or 3 games. So yeah. It was kind of amazing they did. And then moving on, we really get into where I would say it was the next generation of video games. That was the NES. They completely changed what was out there. Yeah. A D-pad.
They really defined where modern controllers were going to go. I mean, that whole layout, you look at it up until that point, and it's a lot of joysticks, a lot of weird-looking pads and this kind of stuff. But it wasn't until NES that it was direction, couple of action buttons. This is how we're going to do this. This is kind of standard. Now, of course, they also had light guns and this and that, but like you could play pretty much every game with this design. And we haven't seen, I mean, we've seen evolutions, but not revolutions, I think, since then, unless you count motion control as a flash in the pan. But really, this has been where modern controllers have come from.
Yeah, and it was funny because you look at the NES controller is more horizontal, where the other ones were vertical. So it's kind of a change in that as well. And actually how you hit the buttons were on the side. Previously you were using probably your left hand to click the buttons and your right hand like a joystick. This one changed it where your left hand was primarily doing the movement. So it was interesting how they designed that. And I think this might be the first digital controller as well for movement, meaning the the control pad was a little more precise, because up was up. It was one movement, where the other ones were kind of floppy and a little bit less exact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was such a, like I said, revolution for the time. It was, and then you saw Sega a couple of years later, Sega Master System, kind of come with the same kind of thing. They had, I believe, a little, I call it a thumb nubbin, because it wasn't a full joystick, something that you could put in the directional pad there, but same kind of thing, 2 action buttons and then the directional pad and the horizontal layout, as you mentioned, Nintendo kind of pioneering. And then they kind of, I think both of those systems, Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, really stepped up the game and things more. The originals were very square boxes, kind of hurt your hands eventually. Then they said, okay, how can we make this ergonomically pleasing while really perfecting the buttons? And as far as old school buttons, until you get into that digital movement of thumbsticks and this, whatever, Mega Drive or the Genesis and the Super Nintendo controller, I think, are kind of the top of the games. Nice rounded designs, multiple buttons, multiple functions, just really, really fantastic.
Yeah, and the amount of buttons now, they were able to really say, hey, we don't just have to have 2 buttons. I mean, we went from a lot of the systems where they had just 1 button now to multiple buttons, shoulder pad or shoulder buttons, triggers, things like that. So we it was amazing how well we adapted. I mean, it was just throwing things at the wall, 3 buttons, 6 buttons. I mean, yeah, it was kind of crazy how we changed and adapted.
Yeah. I still like I said, for a 2D game, I personally don't think you can get any better than a Super Nintendo controller.
No,
until you need that joystick, I challenge anyone to find a better controller for that generation of stuff. Of course, we did see some really weird stuff. I don't even know what this is. I just saw it on the list, the Sega Activator.
Yeah, that was kind of like a motion. It sensed motion, so you can move in it. It's like a little circle. You stood in it. And apparently, it had little cameras, and you could like punch and things. It's almost like the pre-Connect.
Yeah. Apparently, it was super inaccurate, costly, flopped like crazy. But 1993, to see Sega taking a weird swing like that, you think that Nintendo's the one that always does the weird stuff, but not always. There have been people that tried it. Nintendo might just be the ones that wait for the technology to be good enough to actually possibly do it, minus the Virtual Boy. We won't mention that.
Yeah. I want to show a shout out to the Commodore 64. I had a Commodore 128. It was my first PC, and they went back when they redid theirs. Basically, they said, "Oh, let's do those sticks again," and it was almost like an Atari stick. It had little suction cups in the bottom, so actually, if you wanted to do a flight controller or something like that, your stick wouldn't move. But it added more buttons, kind of trigger and the top button, like you're controlling a flight simulator, which was very common today. So. Those weren't great either, but still, it once again trying new things, giving more options. And PCs definitely struggled with actually input systems because mouse and keyboard were still not that great at the time. So it was hit or miss. I remember trying to play Mortal Kombat on my PC before gaming, which actually was a thing. Mortal Kombat, our arcade port in 1993, and they didn't even have like game pads. And I'm like, I'm not going to play this on a keyboard and mouse.
Ew.
Yeah, it was a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Jaguar. Look at Jaguar's controller, Mark. Bringing back the keypad.
Yeah. Yeah, that seemed like a good idea for some reason. That really worked out for Jaguar, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know how many people owned a Jaguar. Well, I had a friend who owned a Jaguar, played it. I can't say much about that, but it was just homunculus. It was huge. It was unwieldy and didn't really offer a lot of great advantages.
Yeah. The Neo Geo CD, super expensive console, didn't do too much interesting with the controller. Arguably, Sony PlayStation, the original controller, didn't really do too much that was interesting out of the box kind of thinking in the original one anyway. Didn't have the thumbsticks at that point, didn't have like the DualShock or anything like that. Iconic for sure, but when you compare that to the N64 controller and see how weird, what kind of strange octopus man that was designed for, it was like Nintendo's really going in some different directions while Sony is kind of building on what the past has been, but not taking it in bold new directions. So what do you think about that kind of generation?
It was weird because Sony they changed mid-generation because originally it was just a PlayStation controller, and it added I think the extra thing that they added was an extra R2 and L2. They add that where there wasn't those before, and it had the longer stalks, which we are very familiar with. That basically adds a little bit more controller. You can lay out your hands a little bit better. But the N64, I mean, the analog stick was a big deal. I mean, that was a big change to make 3D gaming important. But I never understood why they had all these extra stalks and where you were supposed to hold your hand. And did anybody really use the D-pad that often?
Nope.
It had triggers. And then
That is so weird.
it added the expansion packs, right? Was there expansion packs? No, there wasn't.
There's an expansion. Yeah, the memory pack went in the back of the controller and the
Okay.
rumble pack. Yeah.
Yeah.
And wildly expensive for the first party stuff, and then third parties kind of came up with because it was kind of swap, so you'd have to swap them in, or you could only use the memory pack and not the rumble pack. But then third parties would come up with one that was like the rumble pack went in first, and then the memory pack went into the rumble pack. So it was, weird accessories for sure. But when you combine the N64 controller and Super Mario 64, game over, man. That was a game changer, and you didn't see PlayStation catch up until I guess 97. So it took them a year to build the DualShock. But in between then, we did have Apple. You think Apple Arcade's the first time Apple really got into gaming? Wrong-o. Apple Bandai Pippin, super short-lived, crazy expensive.
Wow.
Weird controller with a track ball in the middle and just a boomerang design. You thought the boomerang.
Oh, now I know where PlayStation 3 tried to steal their design from, Mark. Oh, my God.
Apple was that stupid long before PlayStation. Moving on.
Yeah, please, let's move on. Microsoft did create some cool game pads for PC, the Sidewinder series. They actually had some really cool innovations with with feedback. They did a long range, and that was one of the ways you could actually use a controller on your PC. So thank you for that. Obviously, they learned a lot that when they actually created for Xbox. But the DualShock was a big deal because it actually allowed for, we would say, modern, I guess with two dual analog sticks, that allowed you to do two ranges of motion, up and down, forward and back, which allowed for first-person shooters on consoles, which really wasn't a thing. I mean, I remember when the Dreamcast tried it with one analog stick and then used the buttons on the top to do your up and down everything. It was a hot mess.
Yeah. Go back and try to play a first-person shooter. As fond memories as I have of GoldenEye and Turok for 64 or whatever. Going back to play them now without that second stick is painful. So PlayStation. We said when they first started off with the PlayStation controller, weren't really doing anything exciting. This completely changed that. They just, this again, for the NES and the Super Nintendo being defining of the 2D generation, the DualShock 1997 completely defined modern 3D gaming.
Yeah, I remember playing, what was it, Medal of Honor for PlayStation. And that was a fun first-person shooter, and they actually got it right. So, and then it just took off from there. It was great. The Dreamcast, so we talked about that a little bit. I mean, it was a weird design. Had the cord at the bottom, which was a bad design. They had a whole thing to hold it like that. And then it had the one analog stick. So, but beyond that, though, the big thing I think that they changed was the VMU, which is such a weird thing, like the expansion pack of the N64, but it had a little, almost a Tamagotchi type of screen. You could do some things, secondary gaming, and then you would plug it in. You could show plays on the 2K series of like football. Very odd, but obviously
super
did
weird.
Not take off.
No, interesting idea. I remember, again, a friend had one of these. I didn't, but I remember seeing that and being like, this is so weird, but kind of cool, but kind of, I'm not going to get it because I'm waiting for GameCube or something else at that point. And it wasn't until a couple of years later, but is, in a weird launch window of, I'm happy enough with the N64 and I know Nintendo's going to come out with something else that's new. So why pick up this weird mid-generation strike kind of thing? So it's very Switch approach, actually, kind of launching mid-cycle, but this Switch worked and this didn't. So it's you never know. Speaking of GameCube, fantastic controller, such a great design. You couldn't mess up. What I liked, you could play this blindfolded. You knew where A was because it was so big. X and Y, the little jelly beans up on the top, and then the B, the slightly smaller one. This was a great controller, lacking one shoulder button, which made ports of other games very difficult.
It was very odd.
Stupid design decision, in my opinion. But you look. We mentioned these before. You look at Power A controllers, and they've added that extra button, and it makes this such a great controller. I love it.
Far better.
I love it.
Yeah, it was such an asymmetrical design. Everything was a little bit different. Everything like hey, we're gonna make a D-pad, but we're gonna make it super small. Don't understand that.
Yeah.
And then the
that's kind of a weird one.
Yeah, and then the C stick not having like the traditional hat or it just made it very odd. And did they make this original controller? Was it the design against Smash Brothers? I can't remember why they made. They typically make a controller design for a specific game in mind, and then they adapt like N64 with Mario 64. But yeah,
it would have been probably Smash. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. I can't imagine them designing this for Luigi's Mansion. So Smash would have been the one. But yeah, this controller was fantastic. And then the Wavebird kind of
first real wireless.
Coming out of the real wireless, of course, needed that adapter to plug into the radio frequency to plug that into your GameCube. But man, such a great design, great wireless, and it actually worked. There had been third-party wireless PlayStation controllers and whatever up until then, but they never really worked well. You had to be direct line of sight and within a certain distance. This thing just freaking worked, man. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I had before was the PlayStation 3 and Xbox. Which one was it? Xbox, the original Xbox. These Logitech Logitech wireless controllers, and they were the best that you could get at the time. Still bad. But still bad. But that was the thing. And it was interesting that the GameCube actually was the one that introduced offset sticks.
Yeah.
Which is surprising because that brought in Xbox, which then the infamous Duke came out.
That big mother, shut your mouth. Man, that was a big controller, but definitely stood out.
Yeah, and those two little buttons, the black and the white buttons. It was funny because playing some of those Xbox games, I'm like, what crap? Which one are the black and white buttons? So it's like apparently those are the bumpers. But yeah, and they also still had an insert for memory cards. I'm trying to remember what was in the original Xbox controllers. There was an
an expansion slot up top, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And then we go straight out. Like I said, the flash in the pan that was motion control. We get the Wiimote and nunchuck. People saw it. They didn't know what to think, but it was instantly understandable when you actually held it in your hand, especially just the Wiimote for Wii Sports and stuff. It was a game changer for a bit. Really did Nintendo's Blue Ocean strategy, but didn't permanently change things. We're still seeing some motion controls in some things, but overall, like I said, flash in the pan kind of thing.
Yeah, and actually reduced the amount of inputs on it because really you were using motion, but really on the Wiimote you had a trigger and the A button. That was about it. Or was there another one? I can't remember.
There was the pad up top, the directional pad up top. Mm-hmm. So you could hold it sideways because you had the 1 and 2 buttons on the bottom. So you could hold it almost, and it was essentially reduced to an NES controller at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, for 3D games, it did. You did miss out on that second analog stick. It was relying on motion control because the nunchuck attachment had the one analog stick, but you missed it on the other side. So you couldn't do, again, that first-person shooter. You had to use the motion control, which, is what it is. Worked for some games, didn't work for others. Killed a lot of could-be, would-be ports, I think. But, it kind of kept Nintendo in business for a little while, for sure. But, we've seen things move back to a more traditional look. Mm-hmm. With Xbox 360 was a fantastic controller. I love that controller. Took the giant Duke and shrunk it down to a more ergonomically friendly size. Had a weirdly big battery pack in the back of it, but otherwise it was still a pretty good controller.
Oh yeah, and I just got my Xbox 360 controller that came with it has not held up very well. The rubber on those things has kind of degraded, but I did find a newer one that I got, which is much better. But yeah, I mean, it kind of, once again, iterated to make it was controller. It basically what Xbox has ground on to say, this is the way we are going to move forward with controllers. They didn't add many more buttons. They added I think it was the forward and the back button or whatever they called them. They've always had weird names for their start and select. Back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't changed that. We saw everyone try to copy the Wii with the Kinect and the PlayStation Move. Kinect obviously has not lasted very well and was introduced as a pack-in with this generation and kicked Microsoft's ass back and let Sony take the lead. And it was interesting to see Sony able to pivot so much because we've mentioned the light bars, we've mentioned all that kind of stuff, and that was all based around PlayStation Move. If you see these big wand controllers with the bubblegum lights on the top, the PlayStation 4 controller, that's why the light bar is facing out on the original designs. It was meant to emulate these lights and have the PlayStation Move camera pick up what you were doing and be able to track these controllers. And they saw how railed Microsoft got with the Kinect stuff in the box and said, okay, we're taking this out of the box. These lights no longer make any sense. And it's interesting to see the motion controls and all that technology that they spent all this time catching up to Nintendo, still even to this day
it's alive
be inside the controller design, right? And have these weird little leftovers and stuff. It's such an interesting weird time in gaming to see these leftover things of something we thought would be game changing and has since again kind of fallen off.
Yeah, apparently there's some rumors that back in the day, Nintendo used to reuse a lot of their components for their new controllers, so they could just repurpose the molds and everything and dies from an expense perspective. Sony did the same thing, but people would say that that's the worst thing of PlayStation VR is those Move controllers. So, worst of both worlds. Then the gamepad came in and basically said, let's do some tablet gaming. This was like the Fisher-Price application of their thing, which it didn't bother me. I actually enjoyed the gamepad controlling and thing. Never thought it was that bad. And the battery life kind of sucked and the range sucked, but it was a cool concept. And it's what got us to really where the Switch is today.
Yeah, the worst thing I think about the gamepad, aside from the Fisher-Priceness of it all, was the inline sticks on the top.
Yeah.
Have those pushed down to the bottom or stagger them like the Switch is now, but to have those both up on the top, I always thought was such a uncomfortable and weird design choice that it
top
never
heavy
really
almost,
stuck with me.
It
was weird to hold and control, and the Pro controller for the Wii U was not much better. So it was a weird kind of design, but it led the way to Switch. I think Nintendo had to make that misstep in order to go in the direction that they went, and obviously that's a very successful direction. So unfortunate, but the games on Wii U, I will still say were fantastic. We're seeing a lot of ports nowadays. Just the controller situation across the board was such a friggin' mess.
Yeah, it was mistakes were made, but I think they use that console as a learning opportunity to move them forward to the next step. Like I said, if the Wii U had a longer range, I would have been significantly happier with it, because at this point, if you were like more than 15 to 20 feet, you couldn't take it. So I'm like, essentially, the feature was nice, but it wasn't that user friendly if you wanted to play around the house. So.
Yeah, I couldn't go out to my kitchen. And so my living room is directly connected to my kitchen, but because there is a small dividing wall in between there, I couldn't go out there. It couldn't talk through one thin wall with a door in it to lead to the kitchen, right? So it was it was when you look at it that way, like, you're not taking this anywhere that's essentially not line of sight, really. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, and almost if they wished they'd created like almost a repeater so you could put it in the house, that would have been a smart decision. But maybe that was just the lag was just too much. But
yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
And then we get to the current gen controllers. Xbox really refined, only added impulse triggers, and they just refined the feel, so it's clunkier. Feels a little bit more substantial. But then the DualShock 4, I mean, like I said, I don't like the look of it because it looks like it's a two-tone. It did add the touchpad, which was sparingly used. Now it's just like a big button. It's like I said, it's the map button. Boom, push it. You could trace on it. That was about it. And then I had the light bar for tracking. That was about it.
Yeah. The touch again. That's the reason I'm worried about the DualSense is the touchpad was so significantly underused and could have been cool, could have been really neat. But like you said, it's the map button, which is a sad kind of realization. So there we go. And that, of course, Xbox also introduced the Elite controller this generation, which is going to continue on for the next generation and is probably the best controller you can buy right now console wise. It is an expensive thing. I don't have one personally, but from everything I've heard, this is the best controller money can buy.
Yeah, I heard the Elite 2 had some issues, and the biggest concern I have with the Elite 2 is the actual warranty, Mark. I didn't realize it was only 90 days.
Oh, wow.
That seems criminally short for something so expensive, and I feel like if they felt like the quality was good enough, they could say it's a 2-year warranty. Why not? You're spending this money. So, but yeah, I've always thought that'd be great. They basically, even Sony had to, late in the stage, they brought out that what was it called? The touch. It was like almost like paddles on the bottom, that attachment they just created.
The new attachment thing. Yeah.
But I've heard people love that. I think the back paddles are going to be the next innovation of next gen, where people are just loving it. I've heard Sean Capri talk about that you can't go back. People have said that. So I think that would be cool if we saw that as kind of a standard bearer. But as of right now, we know Xbox Series X is not really doing that with their controller. The only thing that they're doing for theirs is they're adding in the share button, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of brings us to Nintendo with the Switch, the Joy-Con. We've already talked about the Pro Controller. I don't think it has to be touched on too much, but the Joy-Con we've mentioned has so much tech packed into such a tiny little space. Not all of it's always been used. One thing I love that I think is underappreciated, maybe not, HD Rumble. I love when
it's fun
when games take advantage of it. Now that have to mean you can feel an ice cube in your controller or something like that. But even in Mario Kart, when you pick something up and the vibration kind of also produces a sound. So it sounds like if you listen closely, it sounds like you're picking up a coin. Or in Mario Party, the controller kind of makes a sound while it vibrates, and it's really weird. Listen closely next time you're playing one of these games. Again, they're expensive because they pack in so much technology, a lot of which is not used. But I think the Joy-Con, the Switch, I think we've talked about it enough that it's a versatile little thing, and it's really, really cool. I wish the Joy-Con drift wasn't such a big problem.
Yep.
But I think what they've done this generation with the versatility of the Switch is really amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's great. And what I would love to see, and I've talked about this before, I've even bought a set of controllers to adapt for it, is essentially a revision of the Joy-Cons, which make it a little bit more substantial, more like a Pro Controller that can be split, because I think that would really help myself play Switch more on the go. But I think it's cool. And once again, it's made it so it's multiplayer right out of the box. Put it out there. It's a cool idea. It's versatile. Does some really cool things. So yeah.
For sure.
One thing I did forget about the DualShock 4, I keep forgetting this, but what it has a speaker built in.
Right.
And then it happens every once in a while. You hear it out of the blue and you're like, oh, I forgot that thing even existed. So bizarre. Yeah.
Yep. Definitely, and we'll see that again continue with a speaker and microphone built into PlayStation 5. So, very, very cool.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us on this reminiscing about where we've come. We going back and, like I said, going back and playing older games, you sometimes forget how sometimes those controllers lack some things that make things so much better today. So, I'm happy where we are now. I don't want to go back to one stick Atari 2600.
No, for sure. Yeah, like I said, even going back and playing N64, you miss that second thumbstick. It is tough to go back, and it's for me even tough. Some people hate me for this, but it's tough going to a PlayStation controller.
Yeah,
because I like offset sticks. I'm so used to the Switch and the Xbox as my main two consoles with those offset controllers that touching or picking up a PlayStation 4 controller right now is like, oh, why? So you get so used to certain things that it does become a little difficult to go in a different direction.
Yeah, and absolutely. Even something as simple as myself, I get thrown off by the buttons, the A, B, X, Y, how they're laid out versus PlayStation, and then the Xbox. Yep. It totally throws me off at times. That's my biggest controller. I don't mind the offset versus the standard sticks. I'm fine with that. But yeah, those buttons that are like, oh wait, where are Nintendo's press A, B, X, Y lined up?
Anxiety. Yeah. No, it's 100%. Yeah.
See. Oh, well. Well, folks, there's ways to tell us what your favorite controllers were or what you'd like to see with controllers coming or how you feel about the DualSense. And that is reach out to us on Twitter at Tioxtra, at The Canardian, at Secret Friends U, or you can call us on the hotline.
1-872-225-2496. I got you.
Thank you, Mark. And then also on the Facebook page and Facebook group. And if you do any of those things, reach out to us, the call, or you leave a review, you can be entered into a giveaway for Roundguard on Xbox One. Congrats to Luke Lohr for winning, and he was gracious enough to actually give that 3-month Game Pass away. So thank you, Luke, for being a very charitable person.
Awesome.
Well, folks, this was a long one, but you only get us every 2 weeks. So, hopefully we can make it enjoyable and you can follow. We will see you back in 2 weeks. Hopefully the world is in a better place than how we left it. So thank you, Mark.
Thanks. See you, everyone.
It's always better to play together, even if it's online.
Introducing Burger Time, the home video game where you're a chef trying to make hamburgers. There's just one problem. The food is trying to make hamburger out of you. Burger Time, only from Mattel Electronics.
We are closed now.